Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome on in to another podcast by George. Hope you like this edition. I'm thinking some people are really going to like it. Some people maybe aren't going to like it so much because I could call this my "Let's get our heads out of our asses" edition of podcast by George. I mean, we got to wake up, folks. We got to look around. Time is drawing very nigh with this climate situation. We need to focus on this. We need to spend money on it. We need to stop our warmongering because the clock is ticking. The doomsday clock, in particular, is really clicking. We're going to be talking today about, the Trilateral Commission on Podcast by George. This is where we triangulate. This is our intersection. And of course, it is climate, war, and healthcare. And returning to the podcast by George live line is a friend, a great guy, and he's doing great work out there. You've seen him on the show before. And you've seen the charts and graphs and articles that he puts together on Substack. And it's Stephen Semler. He's the co-founder of the SPRI, the Security Policy Reform Institute. Stephen follows the money on U.S. foreign and domestic policy topics. He writes for working class grassroots organizers and candidates, but he says all are welcome. So we want you to contact the Security Policy Reform Institute at securityreform.org. And you can follow them on Twitter at security_reform.org. Okay, so before we bring Stephen in, as a way of introducing this and to get to kind of the focus, the reason that I talk about this stuff so much, let's put this up on screen. And this might surprise some people. Foreign policy is domestic policy. Quote, every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. The world in arms is not spending money alone, it is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, and the hopes of its children. Who said that? U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower, folks. And probably the most remarkable part of that quote is the date, April 26th, 1953. My God. Well, I'm not real good at math. What is it? 70 years ago, right? I mean, and we're still doing it. We still haven't learned our lesson. There are still people starving to death and cold in Afghanistan, millions of them, folks. And of course, the situation in Ukraine, people wanting to send weapons and bombs and bombers in there.
Yeah, the speech Eisenhower gave in his farewell address is still very
Yeah.
germane, and it's Biden doesn't even talk about it in terms of trade-offs between military spending and non-military spending. He just talks about military spending as if it's quote unquote an investment in our national security unquote. So it's sort of one of these things where you know the military expenditures are just sort of glossed over and said to be, oh, they're just investments in our national security, but they don't really yield much security to speak of, or at least it's very, very hard to prove that military spending, let alone record levels of military spending, is worth the trade-off with domestic investments that we can empirically prove save lives and improve lives.